Good morning, everybody, from grey and damp Dorset. Welcome to Ask the Expert, an award-winning daily series from 8:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. to help small businesses. If you have any questions, ask them in the comments of the live feed. And if you need any more advice, join the official Intuit QuickBooks SMB community group on Facebook. There are accountants and business experts on hand 24/7. During the live session, we will be running a poll, so please do engage with it, and I'll reveal the results at the end. So I'm Laura Hitchcock, and I started Little Stuff, an award-winning parenting magazine blog, 18 years ago when I was pregnant with my third child. I've always talked to parents around the same age of life as I am. So as a parent of four, I started off talking to pregnant mums and mums of young babies and toddlers. And now, all this time later, I talk to parents of teenagers. It's just talking about the stuff that parents want to talk about. So we might be talking about great products, we might be talking about sales bargains, we might be doing reviews of things, but we're also talking about things like how to talk to your teens about porn, or how to live with a revising teenager, or frankly, which gin cocktails are the best. So over that time, I built up a large subscription list, and my newsletter was going out every month to 14,000 people, and my open rate was about 0.5%. Shocking, absolutely shocking. And I knew that I had to do something with it. I had this great list of people who were interested enough to sign up, but weren't interested enough in what the newsletter was saying. So I didn't want to waste this opportunity. So I looked around and found a free trial of a magazine software. And I thought, well, people my age, my situation in life, like magazines, so maybe that format might be more engaging. So I gave it a shot. I created a very small, short magazine, and the first one had an open rate of 20%. Absolutely incredible. And the content wasn't that different. It was just the layout and the style and the tone was different, and it engaged people. And so I built from there. So Little Stuff started creating a monthly magazine that went out alongside the blog content, with different content in it from what was on the blog, but along the same sort of lines, the same sort of theme. And there were competitions and product reviews and seasonal offers, that kind of thing. And we now go out to around 17,000 readers a month, and the average open rate is about 22%. Now, obviously, this time last year, things took a little bit of a turn. COVID meant all of my income streams almost vanished. All my partners, I was dealing with big high street brands, and they just froze all the partnerships. They weren't doing any marketing. They weren't working with external people. And I was having trouble finding out, where the income was going to come from. But at the same time, my read rate and my audience tripled. My traffic went through the roof, because obviously more people were spending time online. So I had to look at what was going on here and how I could use it better. And using Google Analytics, I looked at the website and found that actually it was the content that I'd created that was doing the best. It was the good content that was bringing in the traffic, and it was bringing in the visitors. Not necessarily fresh content, things that I might have written 10 years ago, but because it was written well and it was relevant still, it was still drawing in the Google traffic, which is where every business is wanting to get their traffic from. Obviously, we're all wanting to draw people in, and not necessarily having to look for fresh audience every single time we do something, but writing something and finding it's still pulling in people 10 years later. I mean, that's the dream, isn't it? So that's Little Stuff, and that's still ticking along in the background. And then 6 months ago, my husband and I launched a local regional monthly magazine here in North Dorset. It's a sort of similar sort of idea to what I was doing with Little Stuff. It's purely digital, and it's just a flippable modern magazine, but it deals on a local level. So where in the past, if I was doing book content, I'd be talking to HarperCollins or Penguin. Now I'm talking to the independent bookshop down the road. I'm talking about local news and local issues. So it's taking all the knowledge that I had and all the experience that I had and working on a local level with it. Some things have become very naturally, some things are a whole new learning curve. But ultimately, the content is where it's at, and that's what I've been doing for nearly 20 years. Now, I'm not a journalist, and a lot of people might have looked and thought, you're no journalist, what business do you have running a magazine? But skills are transferable. And a lot of the things that I was doing are exactly the same as I'm doing now. So the magazine in just over 6 months has gained almost 10,000 subscribers, and we actually have a 54% open rate. Now, the national average you expect on an open rate email send out is about 12, 14%. So getting a 54% open rate, we're absolutely thrilled with that. And we get a 28% click-through rate, which is just unbelievable. And that's purely because we know that the content we're creating is what people want to read. If people don't want to read it, they're never going to open another email from you. So you've got to make sure the content is good. Now, this applies to, obviously, most businesses aren't creating magazines or readable content in that format, but every business has information to impart and education they can share with their consumers. 61% of online purchases are the direct result of a customer reading a blog. People want to read. It's no different to if you go to Amazon to buy something, you always scroll down and read the reviews. People don't want to just buy from a shop. They want to know about the product, how it works, will it work for them? And it's HubSpot published recently that companies that publish 16 blog posts a month get 3.5 times more traffic than those who post 4 or fewer posts a month. You publish the content and the traffic comes. But do you just publish any old content? No, you need a strategy. So I always think of the strategy as 4 parts. There's the brand, the tone, the subject, and the promotion, and all 4 are just as equal. So if you're talking about the brand, you've got to think at all times who you're writing for and what you're writing about. You keep it on your brand. You have to think before you start publishing anything, what is my brand about? A sofa company can write about anything, but they're not going to get sales unless they're writing about something to do with sofas, for example. If they're a high-end sofa brand, they need to think about what their target customers' tone and brand is. And that ties closely in with tone itself. People buy from people. People engage with people. There's been a massive shift in recent years, which is, I think, is a brilliant thing, that people are engaging with brands with personality. You don't want an informal face-off. You want to know you're talking to a person. So when you're creating content, think about your tone. Keep it personal, keep it warm, add personality, add humor. People love to laugh. Make them laugh. It's fine. You don't have to be a stiff professional content. Make it about you. Make it the thing that you want to read, because if you want to read it, other people will. If you're boring yourself, you're bound to be boring your readers. And then there's a subject. Keep a clear idea of what you're trying to say. Stay on your message. So you can write a long, rambly, chatty post, but make sure you're staying on topic. Think about your keywords. Think about, at the end of this, you want people still in 5 years' time to be searching for this thing that you're saying right now. So what will they be searching for? Will they be searching for what you said to your neighbor, or will they be thinking about, how do I trim my hedge? Think about those Google search terms and then keep that relevant within the content that you're writing. It's much easier to do it when you start writing than to go back to it in 2 months' time and think, I need to change this to make it fit somebody's Google search terms. So you've thought about how you're going to write it. You've thought about your subject matter. You've crafted this post. Leave it for a day. Go back to it. Read it out loud. I know it sounds stupid, but I do this all the time, and it always makes a difference. Not only will you pick up any spelling mistakes when you're reading it out loud, but you also see how it flows. You can hear where, if you're stumbling over when you're trying to read something, it's not written well enough. So you need to go back and edit it. So don't ever just tap out a post and then hit post. That's not going to work for you as well as if you just take a little bit of time and a little bit of planning and forethought. Go back in, make sure that you've stayed on message. Can you add anything about your brand within there? Can you add useful links to other people's websites which are going to add value to what you're saying? If you're talking about a particular subject and there's a key fact about it, let people know where you've got that fact from. Link through to it. Create a network and like a cobweb of different links. Make sure you link within your own website as well. The more linking you can do, the more Google will like it, the higher that it will rank on Google. So you've created your post, you've decided on your content, you've written it beautifully, you've added images, you've broken it into paragraphs, and you hit publish. And then what do? Do you just let it sit there? Do you trust that people will find it? No, you've got to get it out and show to people. You know, there's a nice saying that that Destiny is just around the corner, that Destiny doesn't do home visits. And it's the same thing with Google traffic. It's out there, but you've got to go and find it. So this is where your promotion comes in. This is where your social media comes in. Now, social media is a balance, because yes, you want to tell people what you're doing, but it's called social media for a reason. It's a conversation. You need to be sociable, not a loudspeaker for your own platform. So you need to be liking and sharing and commenting and entering conversations with other people on other subjects all of the time. And then every now and again, promote yourself. But do use the social media, because it's a fantastic tool. You don't have to do them all. Figure out where your audience is. If your demographic is all on Instagram, don't spend all your time on Twitter. You can't do everything unless you're paying somebody to do it for you. You can't conquer them all. Can't do Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and Pinterest and any other ones that I don't even know about because I'm too elderly. So find out where your audience is and try and conquer that. Even if you just do one and you do it well, you're winning. Okay, so I'm going to start taking some questions. First one in is Daria from Facebook Messenger. Hi Laura, what content topics have worked best for you in recent times? Can you share a few examples, please? Oh, this is a huge topic. Trouble is with little stuff, the topics are so vast, but there are some fan favourites that are what I call columns of the website, which never fail to gain traffic. So old-fashioned school dinner recipes. So I've got cornflake tart, pink custard. There's a couple of others that people are always looking for comfort food recipes. They're written very simply, they have good images, and they are constant topics. The post I wrote about how to talk to your teenagers about porn constantly gets a lot of traffic. At Christmas, top advent calendars for teenagers did a bomb September to October. I wrote it 2 years ago, but every year I update it with the latest advent calendars to make sure it's relevant for this year's. Come round to August, September, the traffic will suddenly go through the roof again. It really is varied. The best thing is to write a varied amount of different topics and watch your Google Analytics, see what people engage with, see what people read, and then take those and expand on those themes and drop the ones that aren't working, or look at the ones that aren't working and try and figure out why they're not working and tweak it to make it work. From Twitter DM, how do you source your content and stories? Do you have to invest a lot of effort and time in research and outreach for every issue? Or have you built a repository that you're using to make every issue happen? Okay, so the Blackmore Vale has basically 3 sections, in effect. The first part is local news. So I have a couple of freelance journalists that work for me. As I said, I'm not a trained journalist, so I try not to deal with the live news because that's not my strength, and I know what I know and I know what I don't. So the first section will be live news, and the journalists and I will discuss through the month. Because we're monthly, we're not a quick turnover daily news thing. So we discuss through the month a few stories that we want to focus on, and we'll do a long form editorial on those. The middle section is columnists. So I sourced a whole bank of local expert columnists who provide their column every month, which is a brilliant way to gain really interesting content on a vast range of subjects, which I'm no expert in. And it's really important if you're creating content to know what you're talking about. And if you don't know, get somebody who does know. Don't try and pretend to be an expert in something that you're not. And then the back end is normal local paper stuff, birthdays and marriages, announcements, sports pages when sports happening, the property pages, etc. Liam from Twitter DM. How often do you think is good to send an email? Open rate is low for my business and I'd like to change that. Oh gosh, Liam, the open rate for emails is a whole science. The first thing I would say is research. There is so much information on the internet about how to get your open rate up. And I know it's just so disheartening when you send out what you think is a great email with some really interesting stuff to 2,000 people and 10 people look at it. Oh, it's so depressing. So how often to send out? How long is a ball of string? It really, really depends. Every single thing here is you just need to test and find out. What I tend to do for a monthly publication, this is going to be different for every business, but this is for me, for a monthly publication, I send out one, and then 4 days later, I send the same thing again. The first email has pictures and is nicely laid out. The second email is purely text. So just to make sure I'm hitting the ones that might have blocked me or not opened me because they couldn't see the first email properly, and I only send it to the people who didn't open the first email. So use a good email sender. It's a bit of software that you can narrow down who you're sending to and when you send it. How often? It depends on your business. If you basically send out, if you've got something interesting, don't send for the sake of it. Send out if there's something important to say and something that people will want to read. Constantly getting emails to say, yay, we're here. Nobody wants them. Don't be that person. You don't want them in your inbox, so don't be that person to somebody else. Alexander from Facebook Live, what content are you finding readers want? Education, stories, etc. How does this change? I think readers always want a personal interest story. They don't mind reading about a local lawyer's firm who's just hired 2 new lawyers if there's a story behind it, if they know that they can get a peek inside info or there's a personal interaction there. Simply reading, this lawyer's firm has hired 2 new lawyers. So nobody really is interested in that unless you happen to be a competing local lawyer who's interested in keeping tabs. But if one of those lawyers has a really interesting backstory or has done something incredible, that makes it a story. It's always about the people. No matter what you're talking about, invest it with humour and people would prefer to read it. Okay, Tahira from Instagram DM. Good morning. Are there any books you believe can help me with understanding content creation? I don't know of any specific books that I've read. I would say the most important thing is simply to read. Read widely, read magazines, read news websites, read personal blogs, read fashion teen blogs, read literature, read modern trendy books, read old classics, read everything. And while you're reading everything, just take a look at what they're talking about and how they're doing it. Once you start looking, you'll start to see patterns emerge. Look at the ones that are doing it well, the big, busy news websites, really engaging, really clever at using headlines to draw people in. There's a fine line between a really good headline that encourages people to come and read, which is the same as your email headline when you send out an email or a blog post headline. You need to draw people's attention, but nobody likes clickbait. So don't use headlines to draw people in to something that is not going to answer that question, because you're going to switch people off and they're not going to come back. In terms of business blogs, HubSpot are fantastic at engaging readers. It could be really dry, really boring technical stuff, but they make it interesting, they make it accessible, and they make it actionable. It's really great website, great emails, and really good place to learn. Another one is Neil Patel, who does a lot of SEO tips. Again, really personable, really interesting, really warm, friendly tone, not intimidating, and makes you feel like you can access this information with interest. Where are we? Okay, so Carmela from Instagram DM. Hi, Laura, what kind of businesses are advertising on your platform? All kinds, absolutely all kinds. So on Little Stuff, it's what we always say is we will take you if a parent of a teenager needs you. So it could be insurance, it could be interior, like bedding, it could be lighting, it could be parenting tips, it could be education, basically anything that a parent of a teenager needs to, because any purchasing decision they make, they're wanting to research. If they're wanting to research about it, I can provide the information for it. So really broad range. And the same goes with the Blackmore Vale, actually, the local media. It's anything that's relevant to a local person. So as long as the services are provided locally, it's of interest to our readers. Yuko from Twitter DM. Do you have a writing routine that you follow? I found I work best with deadlines hobbing over me. Also, what's your top tips for writer's block? It happens to me from time to time. Okay, so I would have said I find writing really easy. Thankfully, so lucky that this is my job, because writing is just what comes naturally. However, I have noticed that the closer I get to deadline, the less I get distracted. I am renowned for butterflying off and having 6 tabs open and going from one to the next lesson, finding my back at the beginning and then having to start the process again. But the closer I get to deadline, the more focused and urgent it becomes and the more efficient I become. So I would say a deadline definitely focuses me, for sure. For writer's block, I think I often stumble at the start because I can't get the start where the start is the hook and the angle. And if you can't get that, you don't know where the rest is going. And what I've found over the years is a friend of mine who's a journalist said one of her editors used to shout at her, "Don't get it right, get it written." And that echoes in my head all the time. And I think that's really important. If you can't figure out the start, ignore the start, write the middle, write the end. Get something down, even if it's not good, just get something written. Write down, I often find writing bullet points. What do I want to do? By the time I'm halfway through my bullet point list, I'm actually writing the article because I've started firing it up. Once you've got most of it written, you can go back and fix the beginning. You can go back and sort the headline. Don't ever start with the headline. Finish by writing the headline. So work it backwards. If you can't figure out the start, you know where you want to end up. So start with the end. Nobody said you had to do beginning, middle, end when you're writing something. Anatole from Facebook Messenger. Hi, Laura. I've been thinking of starting a weekly newsletter for my customers. I run a coffee shop and plan on engaging with my customers by sharing different recipes and sourcing and featuring some of my customers' recipes. I'm worried I might run out of ideas after a few weeks. What can I do to plan a long-term approach? Plan, literally, Anatole. It's as simple as putting a pen to paper or creating a spreadsheet and writing out a plan. So work out simple things. I often find breaking it down into blocks. So break it down into months. Think about the for a coffee shop, you might think seasonally. So what's in season for cakes and recipes? What do people want at this time of year? If it's high summer, they're not going to want heavy, stodgy stuff. It's the middle of winter, they're not going to want light stuff. And use your own skills. And like you say, use your customers, have them engage. If you're doing it weekly, plan a few weeks ahead. But most bloggers I know set out a plan where they have a potential things I want to write about list, which can run into 30 or 40. If you've got 50 ideas, that's a whole year's worth of content. And just keep adding to the list. And of course, don't forget you can repeat yourself. If you did a coffee and walnut cake 6 months ago, do a different coffee and walnut cake. Doesn't matter. Use a different photograph, use a different recipe. And hey, presto, you've got a whole new set of content. You can also rework. So if a customer shares a recipe that's similar to one of yours, don't forget to link back to your recipe or something that goes with it. Or do a variation on a theme. You run a coffee shop. How many different types of coffee are there? Talk about different types of coffee every month. Once you start brainstorming different ideas, you'll soon work out a plan. And all you need initially is a list of, like you said, if you're doing it weekly, a list of 52 ideas. Once you have those, every week you know what you're talking about, and then you can create the content accordingly. Callum from Instagram DM. My son wants to become a YouTuber. Everybody's son wants to become a YouTuber, right? And he finds it difficult to record himself speaking as he gets very nervous. What would you advise him to do to improve and be more confident in front of the camera? Gosh, that's a tricky one because I'm not sure that you can necessarily learn confidence, but I think it's like all things, it's practice. So get him to record himself, not publicly. Don't make him do YouTube videos and put them up for people to see, but record videos for himself. Sit there and practice. It's like anything, isn't it? The more you do it, the more comfortable you are at it. And talking to a camera is purely about being comfortable. You know, if you can get over the fact that there's people watching me and you're actually just chatting to one best mate, it becomes easier. So just having practice and practice and practice being in front of the camera. Most teenagers tend to make videos for themselves with their phones and send it to their mates. I find that they're quite comfortable using cameras. So get him used to doing that, and the YouTube video will follow on quite naturally, I should think. Albertine from Twitter DM. Is it possible to make the content evergreen so that it will still be of value in the future? Something like YouTube videos where old videos keep increasing views over time. Albertine, absolutely is. As I said, some of my best performing content is years old, absolutely years old. The important thing is that the content, that you tend to have two types of content. One is very relevant and now, and that's going to date quickly. And one is evergreen, as you say. The evergreen content is gold. That's the stuff you want because that's the stuff that continues to build over time. So you think about the search terms and make sure they're not relevant to a particular year. But what the important thing is You go back to that content occasionally and refresh it. Don't change the date on the post. Google likes to see when it was first created. But what you can do is put the first line or the second line of the post updated in 2021. So if somebody's looking for the latest phone cover for an S20, Samsung S20, in 2 years' time, that's not going to be any relevant any further because the S20 is going to be old and out of hat. But a recipe or a how-to post or an information thing like parenting tips, constantly relevant. But the important thing is to let Google know you didn't dump it and forget it. So you go back to it, you adjust it, maybe add new pictures in, tweak the content, add some new links to some newer stuff, refresh it every now and again. And when Google sees you doing that, it knows that this is content that's worth re-looking at, and it will re-index it and rank it higher and higher. And over time, absolutely, the traffic grows to these posts and they'll become column posts. I mean, I haven't written an old school dinners recipe post for probably 7 or 8 years, and yet they're my highest traffic drivers on my website. Okay, Alexander from Facebook Live. Do you schedule writing sessions for blog posts in your diary? I'm struggling to juggle everything I'm doing for my business. Yes, Alexander. Schedule your time. Say, it's up to you. I mean, everybody works differently. Personally, I like to set aside 2 hours a day, for example, depending on what's going on, but I might say 2 hours a day, this is my writing time. Then there's an hour for social media and 2 hours for emails. Some people like to say, okay, Mondays are my content creation day. And that's absolutely fine because it's your diary. But if you don't schedule the time, you won't find time to do it. It's the same old thing, isn't it? You never find time, you have to make time. And it's really important. I think this is one of those things where if you're trying to get your website traffic up and you're trying to increase your visibility, writing blog posts is important. So if it's of value to your business, it's of value to your time to schedule into your diary to make sure that you're making time for it, because you're right, we're all juggling so much and it's just overwhelming how many different things we have to find time for in a day. So if we don't schedule them in that diary, they're just never going to get done. Okay, so we've been running the poll results and they are in. We asked you, have you ever sacrificed anything for your employees? And 100% of you said no. Nobody has sacrificed anything for an employee. Well, that surprised me actually, because I would have said there are employers out there who do sacrifice things. Maybe they don't consider it a sacrifice. Maybe that's what it is, that people who are running businesses don't believe that they're sacrificing, because ultimately if they do things for their employees, it comes back and it helps them. So maybe that's why. I don't know. So thank you for your time this morning. It's been a pleasure to be with you. If you have any questions, please get in touch with the QuickBooks support team or myself on Twitter. I'm at Blackmore, that's BLACKMORE _Vale on Twitter, or come follow the Blackmore Vales page on Facebook if you want a sneaky slice of rural Dorset life. It's a good read. Come and see it. Coming up on Ask the Expert on Monday is Johan Gori, who's the Managing Director of On Point Accounting Group. Tune in to get advice on how to grow your startup. Don't forget to join the official Intuit QuickBooks SMB group on Facebook. Accountants and business experts are on hand 24/7. Thank you for tuning in, everybody, and have a good weekend.